How's it going, Yankee fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Ryan Garcia. And today we want to discuss the inconsistencies, the polarizing nature right now of Giancarlo Stanton. What's happening to him? Why the Yankees are kind of screwed if he doesn't start hitting, because this cleanup spot, the Yankees have essentially been playing Russian roulette at cleanup, whether it's freaking Ronald Guzman or IKF batting cleanup yesterday or Josh Donaldson. These guys aren't supposed to be hitting in one of the most important spots in the lineup. And ultimately, Stanton is the guy you need just performing well there, or even Rizzo. But Stanton's been really, really bad since coming back from the IL. He has that Achilles tendonitis issue. It's seemingly still bothering him. He doesn't look comfortable. He had one decent at bat yesterday, ended up striking out on that curveball at the end of the game. But it was not a terrible at bat. He did take some pitches. He has been unable to hit the fastball lately, really, really bad the last couple months. But the first half of the year obviously made the All-Star team. He was the MVP of the All-Star game. And since then, his numbers have degraded at a rate that is almost inconceivable. If you look at his yearly numbers right now, this looks like his worst season maybe of his entire career, which is quite scary to consider, given how talented and how much money the Yankees are paying him right now. But Ryan, I want to discuss Stanton, what they need from him, why he's so important to this team, and if he continues to struggle, why this offense is really going to have a hard time beating better teams. Before we do so, how you do today, my friend?
Today's kind of a weird day because the Yankees, for some reason, are playing a series that they should not be playing for their division, but now they're playing for the division, which we imagine coming down this stretch would be, time for us to get healthy, and we're getting more injured. DJ LeMay, who just hit the IL, Stanton doesn't really look right. I don't think he's fully healthy. An Achilles, that area, it's a hard place to heal. In the middle of a season, that's tricky stuff. We've seen some big profile athletes across, different leagues have Achilles issues, and they don't really look the same for a while after. And Stan's a guy who's going to have to be stuck in that DH spot. There's no room for him to be playing the outfield. There's not going to be time. I think I've mentioned that before, but for guys like Matt Carpenter, that's a little bit troubling because the Yankees could really use him if he does get back. But Stanton, the Yankees need him to hit, and he's, as you mentioned, having the worst year of his career as a Yankee, at least. Maybe he had a worst year in Miami, but I'm not remembering that off the top of my head. And considering how much of a postseason, crutch he's been for you, you've been relying on him for big hits, more so than even Aaron Judge over the recent years. That's a huge blow if you don't get a fully healthy Stanton for October. It severely weakens a lineup that's already severely weakened. They just don't have anyone outside of Judge really giving them much. We saw this yesterday. How many opportunities do the Yankees have to, get a big hit and put themselves ahead and beat the Minnesota Twins? They had multiple opportunities and they couldn't punch through. Stanton had a lefty throwing under 96 miles an hour. That is usually the worst case scenario for a pitcher, having to face Stanton as a lefty without, ridiculous stuff. And Stanton was getting overmatched. He had to try to fight off 93, 94. That should be turned around and put, 450 feet into left field. That ball should be hit, 113 miles an hour minimum as a scorching line drive that just blitzes out of the stadium. And if you blink, you missed it. And for some reason, he was fouling them back. That's not Stanton. If people want to say it's just one at bat, but that one at bat told you a lot about where Stanton's at right now. It's not really the swing decisions, right? I know he struck out, but it was a 3-2 count. He kept fighting. It's not a swing decision issue. The guy's not making bad swing decisions. He's just getting beat. And that's not Giancarlo Stanton. Typically, pitchers try to beat Giancarlo Stanton by getting him to expand. And they're beating him by throwing fastballs in the zone. That's just it's not something that you are excited about when it comes to Stanton. It's not something that is in Stanton's game. It's not something he's ever particularly struggled with at a big time level. Have we seen him go really cold? Yes, but have we seen him go cold like this? Typically, he looks like the worst hitter you've ever seen because he starts swinging at sliders down and away. Thielbar threw a bunch of pitches upstairs or threw a couple curveballs in the dirt. He swung at one of them to end the at bat, but that was a really well executed pitch. Stanton got beat in the zone. Stanton got beat on fastballs in the zone at 93. Can't happen from a lefty. This isn't, if that's, Jacob deGrom's fastball or Max Scherzer's fastball, or, you can't face Garrett Cole because he's on the same team, but Garrett Cole's fastball, sure, that makes sense. These are power fastballs with great movement, and unique release points that have gotten great success. But this is Caleb Thielbar's fastball. No disrespect to the guy, but he's a lefty. So, it's I don't really know what I can really say about his struggles because it's unprecedented. I've never seen Stanton play like this late into a season. And I'm very concerned because he's your second best. He was supposed to be your second best hitter. He's supposed to be your cleanup hitter, and you don't have a cleanup hitter right now. And it makes it like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who's been playing great lately. Don't get me wrong. He's your cleanup hitter. He was your cleanup hitter yesterday. That's bad. That's really freaking bad. They got to figure it out, man. Stanton knows that he's the second most important hitter on this team, and if he's hitting, the rest of this line is going to follow suit, and the Yankees are going to start winning games, and especially in a series against. I think he's supposed to play. He has to go berserk here. He has to, absolutely has to.
Yeah, he absolutely has to go berserk here. And, I do think the injury is still kind of hurting him. You can tell he just doesn't look like he's balanced when in the batter's box. His kind of balance is all over the place when he's swinging. It just looks off. His mechanics look a little off. It looks like he's being bothered. Maybe they give him a couple of days off, what they were kind of trying to do to get him back to form. But Achilles tendonitis, you can't just give him 2-3 days off. You need like a month, 2 months off to really heal that, because it comes back pretty easily. But it seems like he's okay. Like it seems, I feel like they would have shut him down for longer if he wasn't able to play. And they're not doing that. Like he is playing, and pinch hitting, he's terrible. He's one of the worst pinch hitters you'll find. He's sitting below 100, I believe, this year in pinch hitting scenarios, or maybe it was his career. I don't exactly know. They showed a stat last night during the game, but looking at his numbers, pitchers are using the fastball more against him this year. They're throwing the fastball 35%. He's hitting below 200. With a 34% whiff rate and 34% strikeout rate. So, not good. It's definitely not where you want it to be. The slugging is still okay at 465, but, the against sliders hitting 204, sinker 160, changeups. He's hitting 244 and curveball 226. So he's a little bit better on the off-speed pitches, but, still very disappointing. On the year, he's only hitting 213 now. He has a sub 30% on base rate. That's the first time in his entire career he has a sub 30% on base rate. He's walking at 10.8%, which isn't bad, but it was higher before the All-Star break. He's striking out at 27.7%, which is kind of on par for his career average. But the slugging is down pretty significantly across the board. He was in 516. The slugging department now is 451. 112 WRC plus is the worst WRC plus he's ever had in his career. This indicates he's 12% better than the average MLB player. But again, he's only played about 315 innings of defensive play, so he's not offering you anything in the outfields either. So what do you really do with Stanton right now? How do you get him back to where he needs to be? He's just missing, like you said. His pitch selection isn't bad. He's swinging at the right pitches. He's just barely missing them. There were a couple fastballs yesterday that he just got under, just in centimeter. If he gets just a centimeter up a little bit, that he gets that extra elevation, that extra launch angle. But do you think that this Achilles injury, this issue he's dealing with, is affecting his launch angle? Because I kind of get the sense that maybe he's just, his ability to go up and use that angle to get the ball elevated maybe is being impacted by it. Like, what do you think really is impacting this? It has to be the injury, right? It can't just be like he hasn't seen a lot of pitches, because he has. It has to be injury related.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting is Giancarlo Stanton, since coming back, doesn't have a single barrel. We've gone through 44 plate appearances with Giancarlo Stanton, by the way, one of the most powerful hitters in the sport, not having a single barrel. That's not normal for Giancarlo Stanton. You mentioned the launch angle, 58.6% ground ball rate. He has a 6.9% line drive rate. That is not Stantonian in terms of batted ball data. It's kind of baffling. I know he's always ran kind of a higher ground ball rate than other guys. Don't get me wrong, it's always kind of been the case. And that's just the nature of his swing. But we're reaching a point where Giancarlo Stanton isn't barreling every baseball. He isn't putting balls into orbit left and right. And that's concerning. The isolated power is actually right at, his career norms, or not his career norms, but the last 2 years. So I'm not concerned about his average versus slugging percentage, but I'm concerned about the average and on base in tandem with that slugging percentage. He's got to barrel up baseballs, right? The bat path, the swing path, it has to improve. Swing decisions for him, again, I've mentioned, it's not like he's expanding the zone too much. He's just lost. He just doesn't look like someone pitchers are throwing more pitches in the zone to him than ever. They know that they can beat him in the zone. I imagine it's an injury thing, unless, maybe it's just a rhythm thing, and maybe this series against Tampa is what he needs. I'm telling you, Stanton hits in this series, the Yankees are going to win the division, right? Stanton has a good series this series, the Yankees will win the American League East comfortably. They will win it comfortably. They'll win the division before the last 2 weeks of the season, before the last, 2 series of the season. That's how confident I am in Stanton being able to turn around this team with just his bat. I don't say this about a lot of players. I think baseball's a team sport, but the way the Yankees are pitching right now, literally is going to come down to just how well Stanton can hit in this series. That's all it'll come down to. So, I hope it's not an injury thing, because if it is, then he's not going to be. Then he's going to hit the IL probably, and then be out for even longer, and that would be really bad for the Yankees. But I really hope it's a rhythm thing. I really do. It's just weird to see Stanton struggle like this for an extended period of time. You just kind of hope it's a weird kind of blip in the radar, and we disregard it down the road.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think I've ever seen Stanton like this either, which makes you think it's not a rhythm thing. It has to be something else bothering him. Hopefully, we hope to God that he's just going through a cold streak, just not seeing it right. Maybe he needs a little vitamin A for his eyes, but I don't know. This is interesting. Maybe his contacts are bad. We'll see what happens. This is obviously the catalyst between the Yankees playing well and not, in my opinion. Judge can carry the team as far as he can. But Stanton, when you have Judge and Stanton hitting well, the rest of the team, like you said before, follows suit. They elevate their game when their top two sluggers are performing well. It motivates. It makes everybody better. And I think that's kind of the situation we're looking at right now, is that the Yankees are struggling at most points and in the batting order, and they need their best hitters to rise to the occasion, because it makes everybody else more confident. And that includes the guy you're paying $35 million a year to. So hopefully he can step up and do something in the next couple of days, especially against the Tampa Bay Rays in a 3-game series. This is do or die right now, guys. If the Yankees blow this series against the Rays, they're 1.5 games back in the AL East, and we're looking at a freaking wild card game. Like, that cannot happen. You can't blow a lead like this. If this happens, Aaron Boone is getting his ass absolutely fucking fired. Like, he must be fired if he finds a way to blow this 15.5 game lead in the AL East. It's unacceptable. I don't care about injuries. Other teams are facing injuries too, but they're not playing this poorly. He's doing a bad job motivating his team. He has to be held accountable. Or Cashman, somebody's got to be held accountable on the managerial side. I imagine you agree with that.
Yeah, ultimately, you know what? This is the third year we're going to say, oh, well, if the Yankees didn't get injured to this regard, they would have won the division or something like that. That works for 1 year. If you want to say 2020, weird year, 2021, kind of a odd year where everyone got worse. This is year 3 of that, right? We are over 200. We're closing in on, over 300 games, of nearly 400 of the Yankees underperforming, right? That is a Brian Cashman, Aaron Boone issue now. I've mentioned this before, on Twitter, but at what point is your team now? At what point is it a team that's underperforming because they just underperformed, and versus a team that's poorly constructed? This team rosters multiple players that are supposed to be relied upon to start that are in their mid to late 30s. What did you expect to happen injury wise, right? LeMahieu, Rizzo, Carpenter, Donaldson, Stanton. Those are guys who are all on that IL who have gone down this year. How many of those are not young guys? I'm not trying to harp on the idea that you should never have guys like over 30 on your roster. I think that would also be a stupid overreaction, but your half of your lineup they have the oldest position player group in the league, right? You have youth luckily coming up. Ultimately, we've heard Aaron Boone rave about how he wants to keep Donaldson at third. I think that's a bad idea. If he has IKF at short and Donaldson at third in this series against the Rays, that tells you all you need to know about Aaron Boone, and that tells you all you need to know about where this organization is at player evaluation wise. Peraza has a 381 on base right now. He has a 129 WRC plus. He's already got 1 outs above average. He's already proven to so far be a steady option. You play the hot hand until he's no longer red hot. If this team can't, this team was punting in the month of August, right? That's a Brian Cashman issue, right? You're the general manager. If you're telling a team that in the month of August doesn't matter in a pennant race, you're wrong. And it proved to be the wrong decision. So, if it doesn't work, you got to go, right? Yankees would have more third place finishes in the last 3 years in division titles if they don't win a division this year. They've won a division in 2019 and 2012, I believe, in the last 10 years. Right. So 80% of the time, the Yankees don't win the American League East. So that's a Brian Cashman issue. He has more resources in the farm, money-wise combined, than any other team in the American League East. That's a Brian Cashman issue. Aaron Boone has to know to play the right guys. That's an Aaron Boone issue, right? How many times do we feel like he's playing, Josh Donaldson instead of, one of these. When Peraza first comes up, he's not a full-time player. He's not a full-time player until everyone on the team basically gets hurt. That's, an Aaron Boone issue. If you want to say Brian Cashman doesn't make the lineups, Brian Cashman hired Aaron Boone. It's a Brian Cashman issue as well. So ultimately, if these two guys want to keep their jobs, they better start pushing the right buttons. I better see Peraza playing every single day. I better see IKF at third, because if I don't see those two things, I'm not handling. There isn't good evaluation with the managerial group. And then as a GM, you wanted to trade for Harrison Bader as your outfield acquisition, knowing he wasn't going to be back till mid-September. You wanted to punt your team. You wanted to, go ahead and not care about August. That's on you. You wanted to bring in a bunch of old guys. You want to spend $25 million on Josh Donaldson and $5 million on IKF when that $30 million could have gone to one of these premier shortstops. You've seen Carlos Correa. We saw him in that series. Great player. Would love to have that player on my team. That's a Brian Cashman issue. Brian Cashman, that's your fault. You didn't bring him in. Don't tell me about Hal Steinbrenner. I don't love Hal, but you know what? Hal wasn't saying no to. Do you think Hal's saying no to a 1-year deal? If Hal said no to a 1-year deal, I mean, that's beyond me. But you could have spent that money the right way. That's $251 million on that payroll, the third highest payroll in the sport, right around where the Mets and the Dodgers are. If you can't put together a team as good as the Mets and the Dodgers consistently, that's a Brian Cashman issue. You want to say Hal should spend more? Sure, Hal should spend more. But the Yankees should win more. 2 division titles since 2012. 2 division titles. That's all I'll say. 2. That's we'll end off there. The number is 2. And it could stay at 2 if the Yankees get swept this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, look what the Mets did. They didn't go out and sign Josh Donaldson for $25 million. They went out and got young players who can contribute over the long term. Again, they're spending a lot more money than Hal Steinbrenner these days, but the Yankees can afford it. They can afford to do that. They just don't want to, and maybe that's because they had Aaron Judge's big contract in mind, and they wanted to make sure they were underneath this the threshold for the what do they call it? The luxury tax threshold. So we'll kind of see how this deploys in the next couple of months, obviously during the winter, how they manage their money, who survives if they blow this lead, but they still have time. Stanton's got to step up. He's got to make an impact. He's not playing defense anymore. He's basically just an offensive player, and he can't even get on base. So it's not like he's running much. He's legit walking. Like, all he is doing is walking, getting to the batter's box, swinging, and then striking out or leaving or grounding out. He's not doing much cardio these days. So hopefully he can get healthy here. Hopefully he can start seeing the ball better and just, offer a little bit more production, because they need him desperately. And if he doesn't step up, then the Yankees are going to continue to struggle offensively. So we'll see what happens, guys. This is a big 3-game series against the Rays. We got to get a couple games in this one. We got to extend this lead. We cannot afford to blow a lead. They have Drew Rasmussen on the mound today. He's like a 2.70 ERA. He's been fantastic this year. He's given up 6 runs in his last 34 innings. You have Frankie Montas on the mound as well for the Yankees. So he had a really good performance in his last outing. Hopefully he can do some good stuff and give the Yankees offense a little bit of cushion in the Bronx. And they got to win games at home, man. The Yankees got to win games at home. That's the bottom line. So hopefully they can do so today. We'll keep you guys updated on any further information regarding this team as always. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Fireside Yankees. Make sure to like and subscribe as always, and enjoy the rest of your Friday.